Hey guys, welcome. I'm just playing with my lighting here. Um, it's like giving me all the shine and all the white face. Oh, that's not very nice. It's not very nice of you, lighting. Oh, wow. Sorry, guys. Us girls do not like to look shiny, and this is exactly all the vibes it's giving me. Thank you guys for being here. I think I'm going to move and find a place that makes me look less shiny. Sorry about this. Lessons the pandemic taught us. That's a little bit better. Okay, a little bit better. What an interesting topic, right? I'm just curious. Can you tell me in the live chat, which is why if you're watching this later, why you want to be a part of these live chats? Because when you're part of lives, you get to interact. Thank you. We've got to figure out your name. Roger? I'm making you sound French and you're from Croatia. Thank you, darling. Thomas, I'm so glad you're here. This is why you want to be here, because you get to be in live time with us. So back to that. Where were you? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments section. Where were you during the height of the pandemic? Because it depends on what country you are in. Because, some countries are still going through the pandemic. Some countries have moved on. While I was in France, France was like one of those really strict countries. And they were like super, super strict about vaccines and stuff like that. And then they all of a sudden, while I've been living there, I'm still in Texas. While I've been living there, there just no masks, there's no nothing there. It's completely open. And then to get back to America, I had to fly into France. I had to fly into Canada. And as I flew into Canada, they were just strict. They're like, you need to fill out this app. You need this, you need that. And I was just like, what? And the girl was like, yeah, you have to fill out this whole app. You have to put everything in there. Penguin, thank you. Oh, Penguin taught me off with a super chat. Thank you so, so, so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Penguin is always such an encourager of my work. And I love that you are transforming your life with my advice. I love that. So I flew into Canada from France to get to America, and she's making me like fill out all this stuff on an app. And I just said, why don't you guys just move on? The rest of this world is moving on. Why are you guys so, this is exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. And so, some countries are just slower to move on from this, and some are just still super strict. So I want to know, where were you in the height of the pandemic? David Hodges says, I appreciate you very much. And I love you. And I look at your beautiful picture. Wow. I want to hug and kiss you. You're a beautiful and gorgeous woman. Thank you, darling. I appreciate your kind words. Don't pronounce a J that hard. Ukrainian style. I don't know how Ukrainians would say that. So Thomas, you're in the US. Hi, Robert. So glad to have you here. So I think I'm just curious, where were you in, tell me, Thomas, what state? You said New Jersey and then you took it down, but so you're in New Jersey, it's super strict, but where were you in the height of the pandemic? So what are the lessons that it taught us? It really depends on where you were and how strict your area was. I know for a while, Europe was super strict. I was in America when the virus occurred in America. But what part of America, Blair? It depends on how much of your freedom was taken away. I spoke with a breathwork. You were in Texas one, okay? Texas wasn't as strict. New York, it was like a ghost town. Yeah, New York, Robert, it was super strict there. So, in Europe, they really were policing them. I mean, people couldn't go to a grocery store without being stopped by a police officer. I'm going to get back to the breathwork practitioner. New Jersey was very strict. So depending on where you were, there are limitations on how much of your freedom was taken away. And so depending on how much of your freedom was taken away, it would come up with different effects. It would affect you all differently. So Stokic said it wasn't that strict in Croatia. It was easy. That's nice. That's really nice. You were in Ohio. How was Ohio? Were they really strict there? So I spoke with this breathwork practitioner in Bali, because I was in Bali, Indonesia, when this all happened. And he said to me, I was like, people are really freaking out. Yeah. Penguin says, I was an essential worker that was surrounded by hundreds of scared people every day. They were terrified. Tons of limitations, max 6 feet, and stress. Thank you for sharing that, Penguin. He said, when I said people are freaking out, and I'll tell you like what people were saying in Bali, but he was saying when human beings, when their freedom of choice is taken away, boom, like game over when you take freedom of choice away. Now, I'm not going to get into the politics of it. I'm not going to get into my opinions about all of this, but I will say that there were many lessons to be learned. Yes, fear did rule the world. I completely agree, Thomas. And, they just don't seem to be stopping either, with just creating more and more fear in the media. But I digress on that. One thing that we learned during the pandemic was how much we are not made to do life alone. Do you agree with that? I'm just curious. Because when you're exactly, Thomas, when you're confined to your home and you don't get to see family members, all those people that you would bump into at the grocery store that drove you nuts, but they were still that human interaction. You're like, I even miss those crazy people at the grocery store. One of the lessons we learned was that we understood the necessity of having encounters and experiences with one another. That in itself is not a byproduct, but it is a necessity for human beings to thrive. We need that interaction with one another. I don't know about you, but as a solo entrepreneur, you work alone a lot. And so sometimes I have to just stop myself and go out in the sunshine, or do things like that, or go to a gym, or go to the market just to be around people, because otherwise I'm indoors working by myself all day, or unless I'm having sessions with clients. But even that, it's over the computer, And I feel it in my nervous system when I haven't had enough human interaction. Like, it does a number on us. And so the pandemic really taught us, like, we need each other. I was in Bali, Indonesia. Yeah, Cayman says some people were living in an unhappy home. One thing that really, and I probably can't even allow myself to fully feel this, but I think about children who were in homes with domestic abuse and just being trapped with very angry, frustrated parents. And I can't even fully allow my mind to go there, because it will just tear me apart. But I think of people who struggle with poverty, who struggle with domestic abuse, people where there's sexual abuse going on in the homes, because that happens. When people are experiencing these things and they're confined, it's like the stories, the untold stories of what happened there would break our hearts into a million pieces. So I was in Bali, Indonesia when this happened, and I worked out at this gym. Yeah, Thomas couldn't see his parents in the nursing home. My parents couldn't see my sister who lives in a nursing home. I've told you guys about Sarah. My sister, she's 30 now. She's been in a nursing home since 2010. This has been 12 years because she was hit by a drunk driver and experienced tons of brain trauma. And my parents couldn't see her for months. I mean, she was just in this nursing home, not able to have family interaction for months. I think they went for like 6 months. And thankfully, we put a camera in her room. I was like, we need to see what's happening in my sister's room. So we have a camera in her room. And so thankfully, my parents were able to speak through that camera. But still, she wasn't getting their touch. So I'm in Bali. And everyone's freaking out. Thank you, Penguin. I appreciate that. Thank you for praying for Sarah. Everyone was freaking out. And I remember I was at this gym and Bali has the area that I lived in, a town called Canggu. Hi, Roger. Everyone was freaking out because no one's from obviously Bali who was at this gym, and everyone was just there visiting. And so people were freaking out. And the rumor was that Bali wasn't going to have the infrastructure to support us. People were saying, we're going to run out of water. We're going to run out of food. We're going to run out of medical care if we were to get sick. I mean, people were painting a very doom and gloom situation. And so I called my family and friends back in the States and just trying to get a grid on what was going on in America. And they said, it's the same in America. We have just as little answers here. And I was encouraged by some friends to stay in Bali. They're like, you might as well stay in paradise while the world is falling apart. And so I made that choice and I did stay in paradise. And I can't tell you how many times I needed to call my mom because once again, this situation invoked in us that necessity for relationship, for the necessity of people. And I remember I would call my mom just out of the blue on online, obviously. And so I would just call her crying and she would say, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I just said, I just need to hear your voice. I just need to hear your voice. And I think, in that it raised up for a lot of us that loneliness, that isolation, and people were getting really creative with Zoom calls and things like that, which I thought was really fantastic. But at the end of the day, when we're not touching each other and we're not holding each other, it creates a real deficit in us as human beings because we're meant to experience one another and encounter one another. Oh, I love what Moonshine is saying. With 8 billion people on the planet, no way are we supposed to be alone. Oh, that is groundbreaking truth. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it highlighted to us that if we're not able to be with each other, it highlighted this loneliness, right? And now let's talk about mental health. So many people, there was tons of anxiety. I was doing YouTube lives and it was before it continued to go on. And I kept saying, don't partner with fear. Don't partner with fear. And then eventually I think we all just said, okay, we're all just afraid. I don't think anyone didn't experience fear in that time. But the mental health, anxiety, depression, all of these things just got really revved up because of being stuck in your home, not having answers as to how dangerous this was, and then losing family members. I lost several people through this, and I can't imagine how many people you guys lost. And so then in that lesson, first we learned about how we need each other. The second thing we learned was that without human interaction, our mental health suffers. When we're confined, our mental health suffers. And then we learned, so it brought up the conversation of mental health, which I hope that conversation never goes away. I hope we never stop talking about mental health. But then we started losing our loved ones as things transpired. People were just boom, 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 dying. And it was amplified even more because, many people said, yeah, people were dying, but not as many as like that died during the Spanish flu. But at the end of the day, when you're losing a loved one, you don't really care about numbers. All you care about is losing the people that you love. And so the other thing that it taught us was the fragility of life, that tomorrow is not promised to any of us. And so, in that, this is the whole heartbeat behind what I do in giving advice and helping equip people to connect through love with dating and relationships, marriage. It are those three things. It's the fact that as human beings, even though there are 8 billion of us, that most of us still struggle with loneliness. Or when we go through hard times, we can really, even if we're not lonely, we choose to be lonely because we're too shameful to share our experience with other people. The other thing is why I do what I do is to support your mental health, because without love, it's a real struggle. It's a real challenge for us human beings. I can't tell you, over the 14 years of giving people advice and supporting people with this, the amount of emails that I have read that would just break your heart, of people who are just in deep, deep loneliness and hurt of not having a person, or having a person and not knowing what to do. And the third is the fragility of life. You don't know, when you're in a marriage or in a relationship, you don't know if that person will be there tomorrow. For a single person, you don't know if that opportunity to speak to the opposite sex, the person that you're interested in, is going to be there. It's like that saying of, when you're in a relationship, that you're never to go to bed angry, because you don't know what's going to happen the next day. How many people, especially during like 9/11, those who were very conscious in their relationships, that were very vocal about their feelings about their loved one, could at least have a clear conscience of, I showed as much love as I possibly could. But those who were very caught up in greed and working constantly and putting their family on the back burner, the amount of regret that goes into that. And that never will go away. You are stuck with that for the rest of your life. And so there are real things that the pandemic really highlighted, which is why I do what I do, but that really highlighted some things of like, hey guys, we have to wake up. Now, this is a little bit of a spiritual perspective, that, in Bali, obviously it's it's a very spiritual culture. And a lot of people who live in Bali are healers, and everyone who pretty much chose to stay in Bali in that time, most of us, I said, what I believed was, we're all like light workers, all healers who were just like, all right, let's just stay in this. Let's get our own healing. Let's support people while they go through this. And so things that were being said and things that I've heard is that when this pandemic happened, that there were some people that were saying that this would last for 4 years. And they said that that while everyone was focusing on the pandemic, that we were going through a massive awakening. And so I don't know about you, but when I talk to people, it's like lots of big traumas are coming up for people. People are questioning their choices in life, choices of their career, choices of their partners, questioning the structure of their life, the foundation of their life, what they have built their life based off of. We're starting to ask ourselves, like, is it worth it? What the things I'm working so hard for, or the things that I've built, like, is this what I really want? Is this really worth it? And so my encouragement to you is, with those 3 lessons that I'm highlighting on, about that we need each other, that we're not meant to do life alone. It really highlighted loneliness and the fear that is caused when we're forced to isolate and be pulled apart, and the mental health ramifications, our mental health, how important that is, and that when that gets compromised, how it can wreak havoc in our lives. And the third was the fragility of life. The fact that some of us, I see came in music said, I lost my aunt friend, their death, but their death had nothing to do with COVID. And Thomas says, I remember the COVID funeral for my aunt, that it reminded us of the fragility of life. I believe that when we have experiences like this, it puts us in a very vulnerable position. It's very humbling. It's very sobering. It's also very scary when these sort of things happen. And I was very intrigued by the fact that it continued to go on. As I said, in some countries, it's still going on. Some countries have moved on. I know with England, the prime minister there just said, like, we just have to learn how to live with this and we got to move on. And then there are some countries who are just, there's still limitations. But that the fact that this lesson went on for so long, to me was, it didn't give us a quick way of escape. You know, when we go through hard times and they last very shortly, and then typically what happens, what do? We get right back into the same groove of doing the same things that we've always done. We get distracted, we get on our phones, we get back to work thinking that, like, the harder we work, you know, the better life's going to be. Meanwhile, we neglect the people that we love. We neglect our families. And so I felt like with it being so prolonged as it was, that it really stopped us in our tracks of just going back to business as usual. And it made us just sit with ourselves much longer than what we wanted to do. And I think that that's interesting. Like, when the world stops, and the busyness stops and the chaos stops, all you have is you and yourself. And whatever's going on inside rises to the surface. And so I would encourage you, you know, that you don't have to wait for life to get to this place where it's always disaster and chaos. That we can always just choose to make that sacred space, to make life stop, so that we can come back to ourselves and really sit with ourselves and see what's going on. What are the things we're afraid of? What is making us feel most alive? What are the things that we're avoiding? What are the things that we really want? And sometimes we just really need to just put life on pause and do that. Also, before I forget, I know it's 23 minutes into this and I'm just now sharing this, so sorry about that. But I am running a special just for you guys who are part of my live community, because it means the world to me that you guys show up here so consistently and you're super flexible with my schedule, because I'm always traveling, and for you guys to show up, it really means the world to me. So I'm offering to people who are part of this specific live, anyone who's been interested in my Emotional Warrior program or private coaching with me right now, if you purchase my Emotional Warrior program, obviously it's within the next 24 hours because of this live video. I don't want people emailing me 2 years from now when they watch this and they're like, hey, I want that offer. I'm like, no. It's for 24 hours. But if you get my Emotional Warrior program, you can get on my website. I am gifting you 2 free 30-minute consultations with me. So it's almost like the price works out to where you're like, buy one, get one for free, which I believe is a really great deal for you guys to take advantage of. So you can go to my website, aricaangelo.com and you can get that Emotional Warrior program. If it's within the 24 hours of this live, I will email you and you will get the 2 free 30-minute consultations with me that start immediately. The first one's immediately. The second one, I'll email you about the details for that. So make sure you take advantage of that. You know, I think at the end of the day, it's like for us to better ourselves, to be able to do relationship with one another from a place that is rewarding, that is brings us life, that is life-giving, that we have to cultivate new skills. We have to allow ourselves to heal and let go of old wounds, old saboteurs that keep us suppressed. That in letting those go, that when we have relationship that is very filling, that it makes life very equally rewarding. We're fulfilled and we feel rewarded by life when we have those relationships that bring life to our souls. They're like water to our hearts. And so I just really want to encourage you. It's like, don't just, if you can be conscious enough, don't wait for a huge pandemic to hit you, for you to go, what is really important to me? What matters to me? I need to pay attention to my mental health. I can't be arrogant enough to think that tomorrow is promised to me and my loved ones, because it's not. And so I have to make sure that I'm showing up vulnerably and fully present with them, because it could be the last time that I see them, and making sure that we express our hearts to them. I just had a personal scare with a friend of mine who is very dear to my heart. And I got to spend some time with them, and really got to express my heart to them and how much they've impacted my life, and basically told them that they could never ever have anything happen to them. They could never leave this earth because they're so valuable to me. And I really poured from my heart. I was actually weeping and sobbing as I was expressing my heart to this person of how much I love them. And that was done recently. And then within a matter of a week, they went to the hospital and were having heart issues. And thankfully they're okay. But if they had not been, that could have been really disastrous. But at the end of the day, even though it would grieve me if that, something had happened to that person, knowing that I spoke from my heart and tried I try my best to speak from my heart with the people in my life, that really matters, because at the end of the day, we don't want to live life going, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. I think when we live life that way, shoulda, coulda, woulda, it's typically because of a lack of courage. It's typically because we're partnered and saturated with fear. And life just doesn't have to be lived that way, that you're actually more strong and you're actually more courageous than you realize. And that you just don't have to build a life based off of regrets and fear, but that you can boldly show up with your heart and say the things that are on your heart that you need to say, which is why I'm a huge advocate of vulnerability, why I have a course about it, why my emotional warrior program is based off of that. But sometimes we have to learn new skills, and most of us don't know what those skills are, which is why I do what I do. Oh, Thomas says, I still watch your Bali live videos when you were off YouTube this year. Ooh, I'm going to have to watch those. I'm curious to see what I said. Juan says, tomorrow is never promised. Try and live life to the fullest. Thomas says, unfortunately, that's what it took for me to change. Yeah, they say that in like market research. It's like people typically don't change until they're in an unsurmountable amount of pain. And then as a result, they make changes. And, I remember there's a scripture that says that a wise man learns from others' mistakes, right? But a wiser man learns from his own. And I believe that in order for us to be wiser, it requires us to get more silent and to spend more time with ourselves and really ask ourselves the hard questions. And once we get those answers, that we allow the tenacity that we all carry to show up and support us so that we can make the changes needed, so that we can live life to the fullest. So I hope that I know this is a more sobering YouTube live of mine, but I think it's good to keep these things on the forefront of our mind, of the fragility of life, the importance of our mental health, and the value of relationships. We have to value the people that we have in front of us. We can't take them for granted. And I'm sure all of you, we've all experienced what it feels like to be taken for granted, taken advantage of. It's not a good feeling. It sucks. But at the end of the day, we're all humans and we're all going to do things that just suck sometimes. And the best thing that we can do is learn and move forward, make changes, move forward. So I hope that this supported you in some way. If you watch this later, I would love to hear in the comments section if this spoke to you, because part of me, I'm like, I don't know if this is actually helping people. Like, I think it is, but I would love your feedback. I think that's another thing that makes us grow in life is getting personal feedback. Roger says, yes, it sucks. Very true. So yeah, if you want to let me know in the comment section, like if this resonated with you or what parts of it spoke to you, I would really love to hear that. Guys, I love you so much. I'm so grateful that you chose to be here with me. Once again, thank you, Penguin, for your super chat. And for those of you who have been interested in doing private coaching with me and you wanted to do my Emotional Warrior program, maybe it may be just the opposite. You're like, I don't care about your Emotional Warrior program, but I would love to do those free. I would love to do those two coaching sessions with you, and I get the Emotional Warrior. You can look at it either way. It's still about the same price. It is the same price. So if you're getting a bonus. You're getting 2 coaching sessions with me, 30 minutes each, and you're getting the Emotional Warrior, both for the price of 1. And that only is going to last for 24 hours within this YouTube live. So I don't want someone watching this 3 months later and going, yeah, I bought your Emotional Warrior program. I want those sessions with you. You're not going to get them. They're just for this YouTube live and then the next 24 hours. So yeah, buy one, get one free, essentially. So guys, I love you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And guys, also for those of you who are here and you're part of my Emotional Warrior program, if you want to sign up for a coaching session, I will also give you one of those for free if you already have the Emotional Warrior programs. Can't penalize the guys who've already done Emotional Warrior. So guys, I love you. Thank you for being here. I know this was a more sobering conversation, but you know what? Sometimes they're just needed. We need to be reconciled back to ourselves sometimes. So know that you're loved. Know that you matter. You really do matter. I think that that's something that we need to hear as human beings. So you have value and you matter. And I'm of the firm belief that, when one of us isn't here, it makes an impact. And I know some people don't see the impact that they make on this world, but every single one of our presence on this planet makes an impact on someone. You may not even know it. But trust me, if you were to go, people would see and it would hurt. So make sure that you take care of yourself. You're so welcome, Thomas. It's my pleasure, my absolute pleasure. Guys, I love you. Thank you for being here. And I will see you tomorrow with another live video. So be well, take care, and I can't wait to join you guys again tomorrow. Mwah.